Everyone. I'm Sheryl Salis, a registered dietitian, a certified diabetes educator, and the founder of Nurture Health Solutions, which is a health and well-being company. I'm also the co-founder of CANC, which is Campaign Against Nutrition Quacks and Courses. And we bring to you Food Facts Decoded, where myths are busted and facts are served. And today's session is on decoding food labels. There's so much confusion around food labels, and it's important to understand food labels. What are the regulations around food labels? And for this, we have a very renowned expert. She is none other than Ms Subhaprada Nishtala. She's a senior executive with over 26 years of experience in quality operations in food processing industry across organizations, including Coca-Cola India and Al-Kabir Exports. She's a food technologist from CFTRI Mysore. Her experience includes a rich mix of audit and training delivery, frontline factory operations, quality assurance, and regulatory compliance. She's a visiting faculty to several food technology institutes, and she's on the board of studies for SNDT University, the Symbiosis Institute of Health Sciences, and Nutraceuticals Department of Guru Nanak Khalsa College. She's the founder of Food Adroit, which provides food safety and regulatory consultancy. She's also the honorary vice president of the Association of Food Science Technologists and the head academic programs of the International Training Center, Food Safety, Applied Nutrition, the training center jointly set up by the Indian regulatory bodies, which is FSSAI and EIC. She has been conferred with numerous awards, including the FSSAI AFST Food Safety Professional of the Year 2019. So it is my great pleasure and honor to invite Subhaprada Nishtala on this very interesting session, which is on decoding food labels. Hi, Subha. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm very good to see you.
I'm looking forward to this very interesting session on decoding food labels. As they
Yes,
say, label padega India. That's the uh, buzz today, and everybody is talking about food labels. There's so much of confusion. So I think let's just dive into this and ask you the first question.
sure.
Why should we even bother reading food labels? Because we really never read food labels in the past. And suddenly we're talking to our patients, clients, and everybody around us about the importance of reading food labels. So why should we read food labels?
I think I would turn that around and say, why should we not read food labels? There is such a plethora of information there. And you're right, we don't read food labels. I have, guided a number of research students who've done surveys as to the percentage of urban populations who read the label, and it's at a very unsatisfying 40%. This was as of last year. Many people just read the label only to see the shelf life, of course, the price. All Indians read the label to see the price, but I think a good number has started reading the best before date. But beyond that, there is certainly a big gap. Why should we read labels? Labels tell you what the food is containing, the formulation in the food. It tells you. It is a tool that the processing companies, the manufacturers, spend a lot of money on to be the face of communication. They're communicating with you through that. So it tells you safety information that do not thaw, fry from frozen. It tells you ingredient information as to how much of a gluten product it may have, or whether it has whole wheat. It tells you nutritional information like sugar, salt. Many of them are fortified with vitamins. So I think each product has a story, and that story is conveyed through the label. It's a very healthy habit. We should we should encourage, and we should start reading the label. Uh, we can speak ahead as to what all
Yeah.
information the label can give us, but
I
yeah,
think
why
very
not
well
read?
said, because there are surveys which have shown that they only read the expiry date. And I think most people only look at the front. Like most people, we ask them, why have you bought this? And they said, no, it says it's healthy. Or it's, it just, so they just read the front of the packet and not really dwell into the food
What
labels,
is
and
making
that's
you?
how they buy the product. And like you mentioned, it's just the expiry date and the brand name is what they would look at, to see whether are they buying a reputed brand, so to say. And so, what are the key parts of a food label that every shopper or every consumer should know?
So, the food labels and what goes onto the food labels is highly regulated both by FSSAI under the Ministry of Health and also by the Affairs Ministry through the Legal Metrology Department. There's a lot of effort, care in ensuring that there is no wrong information on the label and that the label has sufficient information shared to allow a consumer to make a well thought out decision. So I'll just list some of the mandatory information, and I'm just speaking about what is mandatory here. The name of the food on the front of pack. Now, when I say the name of the food, it's not the brand name or the fancy name. As per regulation, need to ensure that there is a common name which is recognized by the consumer. I can, not get away by saying masala pops. I'll have to say cumin chicken nugget or pepper vegetable patty. So fancy names alone are not permitted. They are of course permitted. The food businesses are permitted to have fancy names as long as they are not misleading. But the name of the food as that can be understood by a consumer has to be in place. Um, the list of ingredients, very very important. And here I think a lot of people may not know that the list of ingredients is in the decreasing order of presence at the time of formulation. So whatever you're reading is the first ingredient, that is the ingredient which is present at the highest percentage in the product you've picked up. The list of ingredients, the nutritional information. Here again, there are mandatory requirements. The energy has to be declared, total protein, total fat, total carbohydrates. Of the carbohydrates, how much is the total sugar? Of the total sugar, how much is the added sugar has to be declared. In the fats, if there are certain norms beyond which, if the product comes from an animal source, cholesterol will need to be declared. Sat fat, unsat fat will need to be declared. Trans fat needs to be declared. Sodium is mandatorily necessary, and yes, cholesterol for animal fats. So these within the nutritional information are mandatory to have. Over and above that, if there are any claims made, for example, a product may say a source of fiber or rich in fiber, then it needs to say how much dietary fiber is in the product, or source of iron, then it needs to say how much iron is in the product. So the nutritional information. Of course, the veg and non-veg logo, we are very, very familiar with that. Coming back to the list of ingredients, every additive that is included in the product, whether it comes through another ingredient. For example, I may be making uh, chips, and the chips may have a coating, a spice mix. So even when I'm only adding the spice mix and not myself adding a additive, then within the spice mix in brackets I do need to mention which additives are included. So declaration of all additives that are in the product, either directly or through carryover, need to come in. Beyond that, then of course, what we are commonly aware with, name and complete address of the manufacturer, of the marketing agency, the FSSAI logo and license number, net quantity, MRP, consumer care details, who do you contact if you are not satisfied with the product, a batch code identification, date marking, when was it manufactured or packed, and when is it uh, expiring or used by. Best before by itself is now voluntary. The regulation requires that we declare an expiry date or a use by date. So the safe date till when the product can be consumed. Instructions for use. Often we don't read these. They tell you how your product is to be used. Is it to be rehydrated? If it is to be stored, how it is to be stored. After opening, please refrigerate. After open and in refrigerator, how long is the shelf life? All of this information. allergen labeling, mandatory declaration of any, not just presence of any food allergens, but also if the product is manufactured in a facility where other allergens have been handled. That also comes as a mandatory requirement on the label. If your product is imported, then what is the country of origin, who has imported it, and the local license number, FSSAI license number of the imported. So all of these are at a minimum the requirements that need to come into a label from a regulatory perspective.
Just to add, I mean, I the sodium I remember was not really labeled in the past. So, has it been a very recent development that
No.
sodium has to be in the label? Because we really do see labels sometimes without sodium being mentioned. So, can we bring that to the notice of FSSAI or anybody?
Uh, this was the one question that my daughter told me, that when you get a chance, please share that what do you do if you come across a label which you feel is not satisfactory. Uh, Food Safety Connect. There is an app that FSCI has. They also have a website on their portal. I encourage that all our listeners go see the app and please send your comments back. For FSSAI, while the regulation has been in place since inception of FSSAI, this is not a new requirement. Many a time there may be a miss because the companies don't know, or other such reasons. FSSAI does do an enforcement. Given the wide numbers we have, if they have missed any, then it is for us to speak up and share that information. So, Food Safety Connect, that's
You
the
can just
app.
download it on the Play Store, is it?
Yes, yes, both.
Oh, great. So we will, because we do see a lot of, at least, with some small scale industry and the very popular products which are sold at maybe your Kirana stores or these small grocery shops. Sometimes when you look at the food labels, it's just so absurd. Like, um, the carb protein fat ratios itself don't, then. And I have bought this to the notice, but I didn't know about Food Safety Connect in spite of being so closely working in this whole
In
in the
the
industry, yeah, in
industry.
the
Yes.
field, and interacting with you and so many others, other experts. I think this itself is new to me, and I will definitely look it up, and I encourage everyone to actually go there, because like you said, it can be missed, but we do still have certain inaccurate food labels which are there, and it's important to bring it to the notice of the right people.
The baseline, I think, for all of us to engage with is that food safety is a shared responsibility. Each of us have a role to play. Disclaimer here, the authority may not be able to come back and tell you that they have addressed it, but believe me, they have a very robust mechanism of addressing every complaint that comes through the app or
That's
through
great.
the email that they have.
So everyone should download food
Yes, we
safety.
should. We should.
Foodsafety.net, you said.
Connect. Food Safety
Connect.
Connect. Yes.
So Food Safety Connect. Okay, now let's understand serving size and percent daily value, because this is where, at least as a dietitian, what I see, people buy the product because it says it's so, and it's like a ragi biscuit or a multigrain biscuit, and they end up eating the entire packet because they just read it's healthy. I mean, for them, ragi, oats, multigrain,
The
whole wheat, all
buzzwords.
this, yeah, these are like healthy, so no matter how much I eat, it's perfectly all right. So let's try and understand more about serving size and percentage daily value.
I think you are better placed than me to talk
But
about
I'm
this, but I'll make an attempt and then you can add on to that.
sure.
In India, the definition of the serve size is left to the manufacturer. There are other geographies like the US, for example, has a standardized definition of serve size for different categories of foods. For us, we leave it to the manufacturer, but it is mandatory to write what is your definition of serve size right up there on the nutrition label. And all calculations of percentage, RDA, DV, daily value in some geographies. For us, I think the FSSAI terminology is more RDA, NIN as well, is to be based on serve size. And that again needs to be declared on the label. It does allow for a little bit. Most responsible businesses will give you that information in a manner which is not misleading, but yes, it does allow for a little amount of confusion to exist. I may say that my fat is just 10% of your RDA. So the recommended daily allowance, which I should ideally be taking in case of micronutrients at least, and in case of macronutrients, hopefully not more than. So that percentage, if I want to say 10%, then I may define the serve size to be ridiculously low. So that fear does exist, but again, most responsible businesses don't do it that way. It is clearly, however, whatever is the definition, whether it may be their definition of cornflake serving as 10 grams or 25 grams or 50 grams, has to be mentioned on the label. And all declarations need to be made as per that on the label. But yes, you should add to this, Cheryl. This is, I think,
I
your
think,
area of
yeah, that's important because people, typically if you see a food label or a nutrition label, it will tell you how many servings are there in that packet. For example, if I'm having a packet of
correct.
biscuits, they will you typically give you the nutrition content of one serving, and that packet could have at least maybe 3 to 4 servings. And that's why it's very important to read what are the number of servings on this packet and one serving. So if you're eating 2 servings, you have to double the number of whatever is mentioned in terms of energy, carbs, protein, fat, which people miss on doing.
Miss
And
doing
then,
that.
yeah, because they only think that, oh, they just look at the nutrition label and the energy, carb, protein, fat, etc., and they would think it's for the entire packet. But it will be very clearly mentioned that this is for one serving, and also this packet contains how many servings. So depending on how
And
much you're eating. Yeah,
yes, and also what is each serve? How, what is the weight or milliliters volume of each serve? That is also to be mentioned in that.
exactly. That's true.
You must
And
look
then
for it.
typically try and stick to that serve, because that is basically, I think portion control is so important, even if it's healthy.
Absolutely.
Whether you're eating a ragi biscuit or multigrain chuda or diet chuda or anything, it's so, so important because nothing is calorie free other than water, and nothing is carbohydrate, and fat. I mean, of course, you do have low carb and no carb foods today, given the keto industry booming, and so many
Yes,
people are
yes.
going keto. But it's important, again, to look at the serving size. And so I think, start doing that. It's very important. I think one is you start doing it, and also very importantly is teach your children to do it. It's so important, where we teach and educate our children to start reading the food label so that they can make wiser, informed decisions. And
It becomes a way of life then to pick up a
exactly,
packet, turn it around, and see what you're putting into
that's
your mouth and how
right.
it's contributing to your day's
Yeah. In fact,
plan for diet.
when we have patients coming to our clinic, we actually tell them, because I do see a lot of children as well. So I tell the parents, because you're going to a supermarket, there are aisles of, so many different kinds of foods and so many healthy foods as well. So, it's just that spending that extra 5-10 minutes reading the labels, that, okay, this bread is good. You can always cross check with us. And then you know that, okay, this is a good brand of bread that I can buy because this is healthy. But take that 5-10 minutes and at least make a more informed decision rather than just going by the front of pack labeling.
Correct, and which is
um,
more attractive. I think we
exactly.
do need to look at what's in the
That's
pack.
right. Yeah. Now let's look at, because typically, we've seen, at least, we have a lot of people who choose protein bars. Okay.
Mhm.
And they would eat protein bars because they want to eat protein, because we know that we are a country which is deficient in protein. Okay. Whether we are vegetarian or non-vegetarian, we are deficient and we're not able to meet our protein requirements. So a lot of people, because they're on the go, field work here, travel, etc., protein bar is easy. I can just keep it in my bag. And then when they come and tell us, we started eating a protein bar. And then when we ask them, okay, tell us the name of the protein bar. And then typically we see they're actually not eating a protein bar, they're eating an energy bar. And they'll say, oh, we didn't know because it just
Yes.
looked like a bar. So how do we tell, just looking at the label, that this is a food which is, say, high in sugar, high in protein, high in fat? How can I identify and, simplify it for our consumer?
I think more than consider whether some food is in itself perfect, we need to look at the food to see how it is contributing to my daily target of consumption. I want a calorie deficient diet, or I want to up my protein. What is I need to have, let's say, 60 gram of protein in my diet. And this bar, how much is it giving me? So one serve, and this is where you need to look at the nutrition table. The nutrition table gives us information as to what is the contribution of protein, as I said, of all of those mandatory declarations: protein, carbs, fat, sugar, cholesterol, trans, sodium. And it will actually be there in numbers on how many grams or milligrams of protein or whichever nutrient you're looking at that bar provides. See how much it's contributing. If it is only giving you 2.5 grams and you think you're having a protein bar, you know you're not. There is also sugar, there's also energy. So just reading the nutrition information table will clearly answer exactly what you are having and how it is contributing to your daily targets.
Right.
As simple as that. It's right there on the back of pack, the nutrition information table. All this information is mandatory by regulation. All processed food companies have it. There is also a stringent surveillance by FSSAI to ensure that they are, within a tolerance limit. So
Correct.
all that care is taken. We should just
Yeah.
start
And even
using.
sugar, there's so many hidden forms of sugar. I know in the past it used to be only sugar. And
Oh
then
yes,
if it's honey or if it's dates or if it's jaggery or maple syrup, people used to not account that for the sugar. And it easily used to be considered like a low sugar or a no sugar product. So, what are the regulations now on added sugar? Because I know the regulations have changed, I think, in the
yes
last
they
few
have.
years.
Yes they
Yeah.
have. I think the most primary change that has happened is in the term that is used is no longer sugar. It is sugars. And the definition of sugars includes all mono and disaccharides. Uh, there is also a prohibition in making claims of no added sugars when the product contains sugars through any ingredient, like you just said, honey, jaggery, candied fruits. You may not make such a claim. That is prohibited. And over and above that, when your product is naturally sweet, let's say you've not added anything, but it's a fruit based product, it's sweet, you need to declare contains naturally occurring sugars. So, a lot of this effort to ensure transparency to consumers has come in. This has been around for a couple of years now. Well established industry has well implemented this. But in addition to all of this, I would still pull back the consumers to look at the nutrition information table. No matter where the sugar is hidden, the total sugars and the added sugars values will reflect that, because those are done typically through analysis at laboratories which are approved by FSSAI. They have to be analyzed and they have to be reported. FSSAI does also permit a calculation, but then again, there is a robust mechanism for doing that. So the NI table can give you the information of whether it
Right.
is in fact low, moderately low, free, or high in sugar.
Correct. So basically, the message here is that buy a product which has got more protein per serving and less sugar, less salt, and definitely less added sugar per serving. So that will be an ideal choice. And of course, the fat, and it should be close to zero trans fat. So that would be a good, product to buy if you're making a healthier choice. And of course, the number of servings do matter. So portion control is key, and we also have high fructose corn syrup, which is added to a lot of packaged foods today. And while people stayed away from sugar, we thought that fructose is good or high fructose corn syrup is good. And today we know that it is a
Sugar.
villain, so to say, or a silent killer, so to say, because I know a lot of people with high uric acid who would give up on protein completely, but not look at the hidden, especially the high fructose corn syrup, which actually elevates your uric acid levels, and it also puts you at a risk of what we call as MASLD, which is metabolically associated steatotic liver disease, which is in the past it used to be called as fatty liver. So
Okay.
it's so important to look at all these things, and high fructose corn syrup, definitely try and buy a product which is having very low amounts of it at no high
Yes.
fructose corn syrup, because it is definitely a culprit, especially when we're looking at metabolic syndrome today.
I think
So,
most consumers don't realize that there is a different metabolic pathway for sucrose and for fructose.
right.
Equivalence is not possible. It both do lead to sugar spikes, but then they each have their. So yeah, I
Their
think a
role.
very
Yeah.
important point that you look at where the sugar is coming from too.
Absolutely. Right. And look at the hidden sugars, because you may not really know. A lot of people perceive that, jaggery is very healthy and honey is very healthy. So you can use it ad libitum.
Uh,
So that is where, the challenge is that whatever you're using, even if it's healthy, it has to be used in moderation. And I think that's the key message that we want to give out from today's session. Again, there's, you'll see natural, organic, no added sugar. We do see a lot of, food labels which say organic or natural. So, how does the regulations, how do they identify that, okay, we can label ours as natural or organic or no added sugar?
So, no ad. So again, for each of the terms that you mentioned, there is a definition in the regulation. If I am to say that a product has no added sugars, then it cannot have any sugar containing ingredients or sugar directly. But then if I want to say it is free in sugars, for example, then there is a definition which says that a product should not have more than zero point 0.5 gram of sugars per 100 grams or per 100 ml of my product. That would be free. And if it is 5 grams of sugars per 100 grams for solids, then there is the definition allows for a declaration or a claim of low sugars, which becomes 2.5 grams per 100 ml in case of liquids. So similarly for protein, 10%
I'm
of
sorry, I'm
RDA,
just interrupting you, Subha, but here does it account for only sucrose or is it
all sugars,
lactose? Is it
all sugars,
okay, all sugars?
mono and disaccharides, all
Okay,
mono and
got
disaccharides.
it.
And that's what has to come into your nutrition information table as well. And you are held, as I said, when the surveillance samplings happen, when you do your 6 monthly compliance samples, you need to analyze and ensure that your formulation may have planned, but the final product also delivers on this.
Great, got it.
So these are in place for fat, for sugar, for energy, for protein, um, for salt, sodium, vitamins. If I want to say my product is a source of calcium, then if it is a solid, I must meet at least 15% of the RDA for 100 grams. And if it's a liquid, 7.5% of RDA for liquid, and double of that if I want to say high. So a lot of you know clarity has been given to the industry on when they can make claims. If you want to say sodium free, for example, then you cannot have more than 0.005 gram of sodium per 100 grams. Similarly, for dietary fiber, for probiotics, if I want to say low GI, then my GI should be less than 55. Uh,
Right.
there's an entire definition in the regulation which becomes necessary for compliance.
And is
They
this
haven't just,
open for
oh
consumers?
yes,
Like if I
oh
want to go
yes,
and refer as a dietitian or maybe just a layperson, I can go
yes,
and look up on the FSSAI
yes.
website.
You go to the FSSAI website, go to the tab on regulations and look for the regulation on advertisement and claims.
Okay.
Okay, and there you will be able to see the compendium. Open the compendium. The compendium has the updated uh, regulation, and it gives you all of this information. They haven't just stopped there, they've even made equivalence. They've said that if you're saying free also means zero, it also means no, without, negligible source. So even they're not they factored in English play, saying that I'm not saying it's low in sugar or free from sugar, I'm saying negligible. So that definition has also been brought in to prevent any source of confusion
Yeah.
to the
Because people are always
consumer.
looking at loopholes, where we can
Yes,
catch any
yes,
loophole and
yes,
try and fit in our product. So, how does a product label itself as organic? I mean, is it again,
yes.
are there definitions for
So
organic?
organic, if you are picking up a product which is organic, then look for the Jaivik Bharat logo, which FSSAI has. It's simple to leaves. Uh, it's while FSSAI does not directly uh, uh, give the organic logo, the mechanism that they have set in place, that there are two authorities which have the process of organic certification. One is APIDA under their NPOP scheme, and one is the participatory guarantee scheme, which is run by the Ministry of Agriculture. So these are the two um, nodal, or should I say, the authorized bodies in India to give an organic certification.
And
There are
for
various.
like suppose I want to buy like an organic fruit or vegetable, then the farm
Yes.
should be kept, without any kind of, I mean, how
Oh,
long
yes.
should there be no cultivation on that farm for it to
No, cultivation isn't exactly the word, but no use of
no
inorganic.
use? Huh.
It's again, I think, a misnomer often that organic produce is grown without use of any aids or fertilizers or pesticides. That again is not true. Inorganic fertilizers, pesticides, weedicides, herbicides are not used. Organic ones are permitted. There is also this entire, you know, uh, let me come to that a little later. Sticking with organic,
Now, is
organic
it like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Because I know that
5
there is
years. 5 years.
5 years that
Five.
you should not have any inorganic.
Correct. Yes, but
But can you
they
grow something in that period, or you have to
can.
just
You
leave it
can.
barren?
No, no, no. You can grow, and again, that 5 year period is more to ensure that any residual inorganic chemicals in the soil have been, leached out or utilized.
So after
That
five
soil
years,
testing.
whatever grows is then labeled as organic.
No, there is a very robust mechanism of testing,
Okay.
analyzing. It's an entire supply chain verification that happens. You should call Chinmayi for this.
Definitely, I'll have a
She
session because
will,
there's so much
yes,
of confusion around
yes,
this, and let's keep it for that session then.
yes, let's keep it for
Okay.
that
And is
session.
there something like for natural? What is the definition for natural?
So, again, natural under FSSAI is a word that can only be used to define a single ingredient food. So that which is made, again, if it's a single ingredient. For example, if I'm saying natural tur dal, I can say that. I can't say natural sambar, yeah, or natural spice mix. It has to be a single ingredient
Hmm.
product. Only then, under FSSAI regulation, can I call the product natural. I'm
And what
talking
is
about
real?
packaged foods here.
What is real?
What is real
Because
is
we also
again
see.
defined. Okay, so you don't use the word real because real is again defined under regulation. What happens in practice? I think industry does comply. You will see products which say that manufactured from natural ingredients, but they would not claim natural if it is not natural. Where we see natural use more often is in the fresh produce.
Yeah.
And for fruits and vegetables, instead of saying organic, they say naturally produced. Again, that's a different, there's no certification that happens for natural. It is more self declaration that they have not used any inorganic pesticides, or that they're using cow dung and other such sources, biological sources of fertilization. There's no certification for that. That's a claim, and you should trust that claim based on the trust you have from the supplier. FSSAI for fresh produce is not applicable. For packaged foods, they do have a definition, and that definition is permissible, as I said, only when it is for single ingredient foods which are not treated using any chemicals, or they do not have any, uh, you know, uh, additives added to it. In that case, the word natural can be used. Like you could say
But I
natural
think there was a
jaggery.
change. Yeah, there's a change in the juice, I think, recently.
Yes,
They have been very stringent when it comes to
yes,
certain terms that are used when it comes to juices.
yes, absolutely right.
So can you
All of
elaborate a little
these.
bit on that?
Yes, so these are some of the words that are very commonly used on juice cartons, natural, pure, real. Real, of course, is a brand also. Uh, so for natural, I've spoken about. Pure again is only for single ingredient foods and should comply with all the safety norms microbiologically and chemically that FSSAI has in place. And compound foods, it's not permissible for.
So let me understand. So if I'm saying it's a fruit juice and I'm saying it's a pure fruit juice, so it should just have a fruit, or if I'm adding sugar and water to the fruit,
Not permissible.
then it's not, you
Not
can't label it
permissible.
as pure. Okay, so it just has to be that one thing. You can't have anything else added to it. Got it.
And very recently, I think just 3 days ago, there was also an advisory that said that you cannot call it 100%
Mm.
because that may mislead the consumer. So the regulations are, as uh, there is feedback from consumers, as there is concern that there is, some misleading terminology, the authority does release these notifications from time to time. Um,
So
and
they're getting more stricter, and is it becoming
they're
difficult then for
adding
the
more
industry?
clarity. I won't say it's becoming more difficult
Like,
per
how is the
se.
industry looking at it? Because I'm sure it becomes very hard for them, because then it means changing the entire thing, that labeling. I
Yes,
mean,
yes. The
it
cost of
must be quite a
packaging is
challenge.
high.
Yes, yeah,
Yes. So it works both ways. Industry has to comply.
right.
I think the ask from industry is that tell us all the changes in one go so that we make it
Yeah, that's
clear.
true, because I know I mean, I do speak to some people from the industry, and they tell me that, one small change that is expected can really impact in a big way.
Yes,
And
yes.
the cost implications are also very high. And obviously, the product then not being in the market can also impact, business and a lot
Of
of
course,
that,
that's
right?
not something
Because
you would
sometimes
want
they
to.
have to withdraw the product completely till they do the entire repackaging and reformulations at times. Yeah. So let's go to our next question. I think today, I also see, in fact, today itself, in clinic, I have seen two people who have celiac disease. And of course, the first thing that happens is removing gluten from the diet. And, honestly, if you ask me, when I started my practice 25 years back, it was so difficult. And today I see so many products which are there, and it's becoming more easier, especially when it comes to your packaged for products. Even now you do have gluten-free flours to gluten-free oats to so many things, and it's really made life much, much easier. Especially if both parents are working, it's quite challenging to sit and make everything at home.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, while we understand that yes, gluten free for certain conditions is important, and we do advocate gluten free diets, but today everyone's going gluten free. Gluten has become suddenly, I think we can have a session. I'm definitely going to do one session which
Yes.
is only on gluten, and gluten suddenly becoming a villain, because the first thing people want to remove, like today I had a lady actually who came to me, and she said her skin dermatologist told her to remove gluten from her diet completely because she's getting skin rashes, and she thinks it's because of gluten. And today we are attributing a lot of things to gluten. So are claims like light, gluten free, fat free always better? And that's what typically people, they will go and pick up because they see this is
Liquid.
LITE. So you're using a light oil or a gluten free, whatever product. So you'll have something which is high on fat, but it is gluten free, or it's fat free, which may be very high on sugar. And we
It
had,
will.
there are some cereals which are available or something like that. We will always go and look for these things. So are they always better? Is the question.
I think um, unless there is a need for your body to for you to go gluten free, I don't see why you should. Gluten is a protein. We should remember that gluten is a protein, and yes, like many allergic reactions, intolerances, it does lead to that. Now, if I am removing gluten, gluten is a very it gives binding. As you know, when you're doing the dough mixing, the gluten develops and creates a firm dough. When I'm removing the gluten, then I have to add something in there to make that dough hold for the product to still be tasty and acceptable.
Right.
And as you rightly said, very often that's fat. So while the claim is of gluten free and may be correct, again, there is a definition of not more than 20 ppm, 20 milligrams per kg for gluten free. Uh, Please do read the nutrition information table because the information of how much fat is in the product or how much sugar is in the product is declared there. They may not call it out. Obviously, You cannot put everything on the front of pack. You would put what you want to sell on the front of pack, but the real story is there at the back of pack.
True.
So need to read that. But from a processing perspective, if you are removing one aspect, you need to supplement it with something else. Even the diet beverages, for example, you're removing a sugar, you're adding sugar alcohols, you're adding artificial sweeteners. So you need to see what is there, not that something is bad, but you need to see that something else has come in.
Right.
High fiber cookies, often also high fat cookies, because that's when they become tasty enough to be
Exactly.
attractive.
I think cookies, I think that for that crunch, you definitely need to add fat to it, and a lot of
Buttering
people
is
would
needed.
just, yeah. So, when you remove something, you have to add something, like
You
you
have to
rightly
add
said.
something
And
else.
that itself may make it unhealthy. So I think what's important is look at it in
Read the
totality and
label.
read the back of
Because
package,
why we
which
read the label?
label exactly. Now there are a lot of food certifications and logos, like FSSAI or the green dot, or we have the fortification because we have so many foods which are now fortified. So how does one identify those? We will definitely be showing that, but so fortification, of course, for your salts and oil. I think rice also they were fortifying, right?
Rice
So
also,
there are certain foods which are
atta
vehicles,
and
yeah.
milk. Yeah,
Correct.
juices as well. So it's a very good question. Fortification is very poorly understood because we don't understand what it means. But we do see the plus F logo. Most commonly, we see it on our oils and on our milk. Salt, we now for a few decades we are used to the iodized salt. Salt is also being double fortified now with iron and iodine. What it means when you see the plus F logo, what it means is that the product has normally one up to 15% of the RDA of that micronutrient in it, but this is defined through standards by FSSAI. Not every product can use the plus F logo. Plus F logo standards are available for rice, atta, salt, milk, oil, juices, and breakfast cereals. So outside of this, as yet, definitions are not in place. And when definitions are not in place, they cannot use the logo.
Right.
There is also a process to using the logo. When I make a product which is compliant, I apply to FSSAI, share my information, and then FSSAI allows me to use the plus F logo. If you're seeing the logo, yes, there has been a process of validation, and only after that the logo is in place.
Right. There used to be, so we know the green and the red. In fact, I have one of my colleague, she is non-vegetarian and her daughter is vegetarian. So she tells
Ah.
the mother, you're the red dot and I'm the green dot. Okay. And I know that they were also trying to do something with the blue dot, which was more diabetes friendly. I don't think that really took off.
Not into
They had many
regulation.
meetings, and I think that was a very good initiative. So maybe hopefully it should come soon, and somebody should, just, uh,
Pick it
again,
up
start
from.
working, yeah, pick
Yes.
it up and start working on it again. But we have a lot of people now who've moved on to becoming vegan or following the vegan way of life. So is there a logo for vegan? Like how you have the green
Yes,
dot
there
for
is.
vegetarian. So
There is.
is a logo? Yeah.
There is a vegan logo. It's a green V. But before I go there, it's no longer the red dot. It's a red triangle now.
Oh, lovely.
This came in place sometime, I think, year ago. The reason for that is if you're colorblind, you're still able to make out the difference.
Oh,
That's why the
interesting.
change came in. Yes. So now it's a green triangle, a red triangle, and with green dot, brown triangle and a
So
green dot.
green, it's still a green
Is
dot.
still a dot. Yes.
And
So
it's a
the
brown
shape
triangle.
difference. Yes. It's
Oh,
triangle inside a square, so that even if you're colorblind, you can still recognize that the product is has animal products in it.
fantastic. See, so I learned so much today. So we talk out,
So
keep talking about food labels, and every interaction with you is so much of learning all the time.
it's
It's
always
amazing. Yeah.
reciprocal. Always reciprocal. So coming back to vegan, yes, there is a logo, and that's a very, very robust system before which FSSAI allows the use of the vegan logo. Uh, they look at all your ingredients, your methods of manufacturing of all your ingredients. For example, if you're using you know, honey, or you're using shellac. It's a kind of lacquer that comes from an insect in any produce, or even if you have any clarifying agents which come from bone, for example, they look at the entire detail. They ask for certificates of testing. They ask for final product to ensure that there are no animal proteins in it. And after that, you're permitted to use the vegan logo. It's not really taken off because it's such a tough process to get through. But the standard is in place and the process is in place, and you will see a few products with the V logo, vegan
Okay.
logo.
Right. Now, allergies and all, I think we already know. So there's peanut allergy, which is not so much in our country, but of course, abroad you see a lot of peanut allergies. But I know that they do mention that this product has got wheat or it's got gluten or,
Yes.
peanuts. I mean, these are the most common that we would see. And, or it has been
Milk,
processed in
fish,
a milk,
egg,
fish, yeah,
yes,
egg, basically all
sulfites.
sulfites, yeah.
These are the
So,
ones mandated.
right. I
So
think
it's
my
mandatory.
last question now to you, Subha, is I know we can go on this, but I'm sure we'll have many more such sessions, and our viewers will definitely be interested to
I
learn
think
more
we
and
have more
understand.
fun chatting, and we hope
Exactly,
the
it's
viewers
always
enjoy too. But it's such fun to just catch up and chat on
absolutely.
these sessions.
And I think that's such an important because people are always so confused. Honestly, when I talk to my colleagues, my dietitian friends, or even people, from the medical fraternity, there's so much of confusion. And when our patients and clients come back to us, they themselves are confused and they tell us things. And sometimes we are also left unaware. We don't know what to tell them. And I think it's so important coming from, an expert like you who's so closely working with FSSCI and knows the regulations in and out. And so much is changing, like you
And so much
mentioned.
changing. True.
And I
Yes.
think it's so important to be abreast with, whatever is happening and, all the new amendments that are happening. And sometimes we, because of our busy schedules, or just because it doesn't come in our purview, we may miss out on it. And I think that's where, again, this session becomes so important. And I'm sure you'll have so much, I think every time we'll have something new to share with us because there's so much of, so much happening on that front as well in terms of, regulations and, of course they are also learning and people are coming and
And feedback comes in, and they,
feedback comes in,
they
they
react,
sometimes it just
adapt.
doesn't occur to you and it has suddenly come from somebody. And I think, like I said, sometimes we see products and we say, okay, this doesn't seem right. Like, I know that there is a brand, I'm not going to take the name of the brand, but it's a very popular brand, especially very commonly sold in all these most of the kirana shops where most people buy
Right,
from. Not
right.
everybody
General
goes to a
trade.
supermarket. And
Correct.
then again, if you look at it, you see that when it looks, and there are these chips or the chaklis and all of that, and the amount of carbs or the fat that is mentioned is so little, that this is deep fried, it can't have such little fat. So, that again is maybe it's been missed out. And that's where I think it's important. Like you said, each one of us has a role to play. We just can't have the authorities because there's a lot of work, and each one of us has to be a responsible citizen and a consumer, and bring this to the notice. And like you mentioned, definitely everybody is going to download
Food
uh,
Safety Connect.
Food Safety Connect. I'm surely going to do this immediately after this conversation. So just to end, any quick tips or rules of thumbs for, thumb rule for smart label reading at grocery stores? I'm sure
Smart label.
go over the weekend and as a family. So, what are your quick tips to them?
I think it's as simple as using common sense, right? There is a lot of confusion, a lot of buzzwords. People throw UPF, HFSS, the labels are attractive, the front of the label shouts something. One of the most misleading labels I've seen are on millet noodles. It says millet noodle and you expect it to be gluten free, but you turn it around and the millet is like 20% of the formulation.
Right.
Please turn
Even
around
oats,
that package.
oats biscuits,
Oats biscuits.
6% oats. The remaining is all refined flour and maida, and it's
Yes,
called an oats biscuit. I mean, that's
it
another
is.
thing. Are they allowed to call
They
themselves as
are.
oats?
They are, and
Yeah.
they are not wrong. Again, if I'm making if I'm making a pepper sausage, you don't want me to put 40% pepper in there. Yeah. So they are allowed to call it, but they are mandated to write how much at the back of that. So
Mm.
unless you
And nobody
turn
reads
it
that.
around, yeah, unless you turn it around, I think The joke is on us if we are not taking the time to turn it around. Industry has both from good practice and driven by regulation, putting out all of the information on the label. So
Correct.
turn around, you see it has 20% millet, it has wheat flour. You know it's not gluten free then. It's only basic thing is common sense. Turn it around, see if it meets your requirements. Read the NI table, read the ingredients, and then take a decision.
Correct. And like we say, today with the whole drive and the campaign, which is Label Padega India, I think
Label
each one of
padhega
us
India.
has to do that
Yes,
and educate our children. I think
yes,
that is where it begins,
yes.
start
And people
educating
around
us.
us,
Yeah, I'm sure schools have already started doing that, started
yes, they
educating
have
children.
very much.
And
So
I think there's an
FSSAI has
Eat
been
Right
doing this.
School initiative
There
that
is an
is
Eat
there.
Right School initiative here in the West region. FSSAI West region has an MOU with BMC, and they are, you are aware of that well, yes. They are going to schools, bringing together teachers, teaching them, teaching the children. Eat Right School does that. But yes, I think it's just a drop in the ocean. Our
Yeah.
sheer numbers are so large that as many of us
Mm.
can become advocates of, reading the label,
I think
we
each one of us, yeah.
healthier India is possible.
And I'm sure after this session, I'm sure people are going to now at least are sensitized to the fact that it's important to read labels and hopefully getting more aware. And people will definitely start reading labels. And we'd love to hear from them, if they've read labels and, what have they seen and is there something. And, so I think thank you so much on that note, Subha, for taking out time. I know how
It's a
busy
pleasure.
schedule you have. And it's wonderful and looking forward to more such sessions. I'm sure we're going to do lots of these,
Look
and
forward
people
to that.
are really looking forward to these sessions. So thank you once again. As always, a pleasure speaking with you.
Just fun speaking with you. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for having me.
Thank
Thank you.
you.